Now Europe was left behind for the final trio of races. Work your way through the crowded streets of Mexico City and past its controversial policemen to the edge of town, and you eventually arrive at the Circuito Hermanos Rodriguez. As we see from Nakajima's cockpit, the surface of the track is as unwrinkled as an electrocardiogram. Nigel Mansell fell foul of the bumps on the first day of qualifying and crashed heavily. But on Saturday, he was back in the groove and earned his 8th pole of the year. Both Williams drivers were back with the conventional chassis car for the rest of the season. Gerhard Berger was in the top 3 for the 6th race on the trot, joining Mansell in the front row, but Nelson Piquet also found the bumpy track difficult. He ended up 300ths adrift of Berger. Thierry Boutsen, who looked competitive all weekend, qualified a strong 4th and underlined this by being fastest of all in the pre-race warm-up. Alain Prost was 5th in the McLaren, and behind Fabi's Benetton, an unhappy Ayrton Senna was a lowly 7th. As for the Mexican crowd, when it comes to enthusiasm, they rival the Italians.
Nigel's hard-won pole didn't benefit him much. Nelson Piquet was very quick away and squeezed between Berger and Mansell. This is the driver's eye view from the 8th row. But down at the front, it was Berger and Boutsen on one side, Piquet and Mansell on the other. And as they sorted themselves out, the Ferrari and the Benetton were moving away. And Mansell had dropped to 5th behind Prost, with Senna challenging. In the double right-hander at the back of the circuit, Prost got a bit close to Piquet, and his nudge spun the Williams round. The McLaren, with its front wheels towing out, was an instant retirement. And as Berger and Boutsen went on their way, Mansell was now 3rd from Senna, Alboreto, Fabi and the Brabhams. Nelson Piquet, meanwhile, was still stationary, gesticulating to the marshals for a push, which he finally got. This incident had spaced the field out, and the two Bs, Berger and Boutsen, were now well in the lead. Boutsen was lining up to challenge. Mansell was clear in 3rd place, while Senna and Alboreto were literally wheel to wheel. Then Nakajima missed his braking at the end of the straight and walloped Warwick's arrows. And in the aftermath, Johansson and Dana were also involved. No one was hurt, but Derek Warwick, minus the arrow's rear wing, was able to drive onto the pits for a new one. And on the next lap, Boutsen made his move, slotting neatly through on the inside. But in the curves that followed, the Ferrari was able to get on the inside and go ahead again. This time, it stayed ahead. And before long, poor Thierry Boutsen was rolling to a halt with electrical failure. All that left Berger sitting pretty, until 2 laps later, the Ferrari's turbo blew. More Ferrari smoke. Another retirement. Michele Alboreto, in the other red car, was already out. So for once, Nigel Mansell was able to profit from the misfortunes of others, and he settled into a comfortable lead, planning to go the whole way without a tyre stop. Ayrton Senna in 2nd place was rather taken aback to be attacked by De Cesaris, but it didn't do the Italian much good. Nelson Piquet, meanwhile, had come up from dead last to 4th behind Patrase's Brabham, and was obviously going to get further. Then came an immense accident on the 160-mile-an-hour right-hander before the pits. Warwick's arrows, perhaps weakened by its earlier accident with Nakajima, had a suspension failure which sent Warwick into the wall. Happily, Derek was able to get himself out, but the tyre barrier was badly damaged and the race was stopped. The video replay showed that the arrows had just understeered straight off the road, and the tyre barrier had done its job well. So the survivors lined up again. And at the restart, Nelson Piquet was in very determined mood. Into the first corner, the two Williamses and the Lotus were almost 3 abreast. And Nelson moved across on Nigel in a decisive chop to take the lead. Mansell wasn't too concerned, however. He knew that the final result would be calculated by adding together the elapsed time of the two parts. And he'd finished part 1 43 seconds ahead of Piquet. Behind Senna, who was third, Cheever now led Fabi and Patrese. Piquet continued to stretch his lead on the road, but behind Mansell, Senna had a duff clutch, and after a spin, he couldn't restart. This promoted Patrese to third, on his way to Brabham's second podium finish of the season. So the flag for Piquet, who'd made up 17 of the 43 seconds cushion that Mansell had had. And it was 9 more points for Nigel, and another non-turbo in the top 6, thanks to Philippe Alliot and the Lola.
And this time, the champagne battle between Piquet and Mansell seemed to reach a new level of frenzy. The World Championship battle was now between just these two. With Senna and Prost failing to score in Mexico, and with only 2 races left, only Mansell could still catch Piquet. Olé!